We are 10 days away from the NFL draft. 9 when you guys are seeing this, 10 when we're recording this. We're going to be breaking down a 4-round Superflex rookie mock draft today, breaking down landing spots. 7-round mock draft dropped from the Athletics' Dane Brugler. So we're going to be doing that as if it's gospel and taking this as if this is the real NFL draft and doing a 4-round rookie mock draft as a result. This will probably be the last one that we do unless randomly like another huge analyst posts a 7-round mock draft. But we have done, I don't know, 5 or 6 of these throughout the offseason. They're a ton of fun for us to do. And this one should be the last one before we get the actual landing spots, the actual draft capital in 10 short days as we're recording this.
Yeah, for sure. Just want to add quickly too. You guys seem to really enjoy these exercises, getting that realistic mock draft capital in these circumstances. Kind of seeing, we talk about a lot of these running back prospects, these wide receiver prospects. A lot of these guys, will they find their way into day 2? Will they find their way into maybe even the first round? Going through these mock drafts from high key analysts like Dane Brugler, Matt Miller, a lot of the other high key analysts that we've done over the offseason gives you an idea as to how the NFL is actually evaluating these guys.
Yeah, because most of these guys say that they do mock drafts with their ears, which means what they're hearing around the league, not necessarily what they would do in their own personal rankings. While we value their opinions because they've been draft analysts for a while, we want to know what they're hearing, and that's why we're going to do these. And this one's a little bit of a shakeup from what we're used to seeing because we got plenty of day 2 draft capital for some of these running backs, which is going to make the actual mock draft a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting. So let's not waste any time. If you guys enjoy at any point, you know what to do. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here. If you want access to all of our rookie rankings, all that stuff will be coming in the coming days. We'll be breaking down top 5 quarterbacks, top 10 running backs, top 10 wide receivers, top 5 tight ends before the NFL draft. And you can get everything and more on flockfantasy.com and use the promo code FSE for 30% off. You guys know the drill. Let's get right into it. All right, so we are in the mock. Like I said, if you guys skipped the intro, we are doing a 2023 Superflex rookie mock draft with landing spots. The mock draft is from Dane Brugler. He did a 7-round mock. He's, well-connected analyst, has a lot of inside sources, so we trust kind of draft capital feel and, what he thinks about these prospects as well. So we're going to rip through 4 rounds and break down the landing spots, the draft capital. You guys should be able to see where everybody went on the screen, and it will be visible to you guys at all times in the bottom right-hand corner there. So I have the 101. We're going to start it off, as we always do, with the chosen son there, Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, I mean, there's pretty much nothing that could actually happen in the NFL draft outside of him falling outside of the first round that he wouldn't go 101. In this mock draft, he goes to the Washington Commanders at 16th overall. I'm starting to think that this is like a real possibility because sometimes we see mock drafts of Bijan in like the 20s and stuff. And I personally just don't think that's going to happen. I think Bijan is a top 3 player in this draft. And even though he plays running back, he should still be off the board in the top 20 overall picks. And I think Washington might end up being his floor. Honestly, they don't have a ton going on there. They have Brian Robinson and Gibson, but he's a free agent after this year. Those guys don't stop you from drafting a generational running back.
Yeah, and it is funny that you mentioned that because obviously you'll see in a lot of mock drafts he's falling into the 20s, a lot of, landing spots with the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Bills, you're going to see, thrown around. But you hear a lot of plugged-in sources basically say that the more realistic range for him is more so in that 8 to 16 range with teams like the Falcons at 8, maybe even the Bears at 9. We have Washington taking him here at 16, maybe even the Texans take him at 12. Like there are more teams in that top 16 that are more willing to take Bijan than maybe the general consensus would say. Again, doesn't really matter what your stance is on running backs. It only takes one team to see this, blue chip level prospect, not worry about the quote unquote value of the pick and just take the player that they view as the best player in the class, which, I wouldn't be shocked if a team viewed Bijan Robinson as the best overall player in this class. So Washington getting him at 16th overall, obviously Eric Bieniemy coming in, should be a fun Washington offense to watch. You got those wide receivers, maybe Sam Howell develops behind him. It's going to be a lot of fun watching this Commanders team, especially the offense this upcoming year. I think Bijan Robinson's the clear pick. And it's funny because the guy that goes number 1 overall in this mock is the guy I'm taking at number 2 in the rookie mock with Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama, going at 1st overall to the Carolina Panthers. We both believe that this is the best quarterback in the class. Obviously, it lands with Carolina, paid the premium to go up and secure this asset for him. We think the ceiling here is Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, exactly. Bryce Young is that type of prospect. I think he is one of the more well-developed passers that I've seen come out. And if he was 6'3", 200 pounds, this wouldn't even be a question mark. I don't even think, I think Chicago would have had a number of different suitors to come up for Bryce Young, not just the Carolina Panthers. Right now, he's the betting favorite to go number 1 overall. Will he actually go number 1 overall? We, of course, have CJ Stroud is set to meet on a top 30 visit with the Carolina Panthers this week sometime. I don't know if it's today or tomorrow, whatever the case is. So maybe the odds shift a little bit once Stroud has his visit and we go back to the CJ Stroud chalk at 101 like we had for a while in the NFL draft. Speaking of CJ Stroud, though, he does go 2nd overall to the Houston Texans, and he will be my pick here. We got rumors that, if Bryce isn't there, they're not going to take a quarterback, and, they wouldn't work with CJ Stroud because he's got the same agent as Deshaun Watson. I don't really give a shit. They need a quarterback. They're going to come out of this draft with a quarterback. And to me, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are head and shoulders the best 2 in this class, which means that if Bryce isn't there at 2, they're going to take CJ Stroud. That's my opinion. They got, the type of infrastructure, the type of offense that can make him succeed with a, San Francisco 49ers type of scheme coming in. They need to address some pass catchers, potentially at 12 or at, 33 or whatever picks that they have. And they will at pick 33, as we're going to talk about later in this mock draft. So I take CJ Stroud here at 103. What do you got at 104?
Yeah, just quickly want to say with CJ Stroud, you mentioned it. They do actually add a couple more players within those first 3 rounds of the draft to go and give him some help. Obviously, you have, a guy like Nico Collins already in town, John Mechie recovering from that leukemia. You add a couple more playmakers to this offense, and I do think that it's not going to look as, damning as it was last year with Davis Mills at the helm. So CJ Stroud, I think that's a good pick. You, of course, add some weapons. 104, though, it would be my 103 personally. And that's going to be Anthony Richardson here, landing at that honeypot of the Indianapolis Colts as a landing spot. 4th overall pick, getting that top 5 capital we're looking for. And I mean, it could look dumb within 3 years that Anthony Richardson is going 4th overall in this draft. He could be the clear-cut 1st overall player, top 5 overall dynasty asset this time in 3 years, given the incredible athletic gifts that he has. Arm talent, size, speed, being able to hit that upper echelon of elite traits. There are not many quarterbacks with this level of ceiling that come around very often. I get it. The floor is pretty low here. Young player. You saw a little bit of the inaccuracy issues this past year in college, but if the tea leaves read right, if he's developed the right way, I just can't pass on him here at the 104.
Yeah, as I've talked about on numerous occasions, the 104 is the perfect spot to be able to take this risk, because it would look stupid if you take Anthony Richardson at 102 and he's one of the biggest busts of this draft class. You're going to have passed on potentially much safer prospects, much better bets to be elite quarterbacks in Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, which is why I would personally take both of them over Anthony Richardson. But like you said, the ceiling is absolutely the roof. He can go off in this Colts offense with Shane Steichen working with him. Obviously, Jalen Hurts just got himself a big payday as a result of Shane Steichen's work. So, yeah, Anthony Richardson, 104. I think it's the perfect time to take that risk. I think he's a great fit for the offense. He has the peripherals of the type of project quarterback you want to bet on. The best athlete in combine history since 1987 at the quarterback position. He's still a very young player, a 1-year starter. There was some refinement that you saw from him on film. There's things to build around. He's not a complete and utter project, an utter train wreck. There's things that he did well already, and that's something that the NFL coaching staff that works with him is going to want to kind of draw on. So for me here at 105, my tier in my rankings after Bijan and these top quarterbacks go off is Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Jordan Addison, and Jahmyr Gibbs. For me, they're kind of in whatever order you kind of prefer them in. I really love that both JSN and Jordan Addison go in the first round here. JSN goes 20th overall to the Seattle Seahawks. Jordan Addison, 25th overall to the New York Giants. And then Jahmyr Gibbs slides down quite a bit there into the second round, 34th overall to the Arizona Cardinals. So I'll probably favor the first round draft capital of these wide receivers. And I'm going to take JSN, who is my current wide receiver 1. Most of these mock drafts, I've talked about Jordan Addison being my wide receiver 1. Obviously, when we got the data from Matt Harmon's reception perception showing that he did struggle quite a bit against press coverage, it's a concern given his size. That makes me favor JSN just a little bit. He checked more boxes, had a better pre-draft process than Jordan Addison. Obviously tested very well, ran a solid 40 at his pro day. So for me, JSN's the safest and probably one of the highest ceiling wide receivers in this draft class. I'll take him here at 105 to the Seahawks at 20th overall.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we talked about how strong the Seahawks offense could potentially be. I think that this is one of the top 10 or so offenses, especially if you add JSN into the mix, could be one of the top 5 or so offenses in the entire NFL. So I agree with you there. JSN, obviously the dynasty landscapes rookie wide receiver 1. I mean, I feel like almost in the small minority for preferring Addison. And because of that, I do think that even if you do prefer Addison, given the current landscape, given how highly people value JSN in relation to Jordan Addison, in relation to Quentin Johnson, the other wide receivers in the class, if you can't trade the pick, I do think you have to take JSN at that 5 spot just because of how the market kind of views him. Obviously, in an ideal scenario, even if you prefer Addison, you can trade down maybe a pick or two. Somebody's willing to overspend, get Jaxon Smith and Njigba, and you could ultimately still get Jordan Addison, who you have conviction as the wide receiver 1 later on in the board. So if I was 105 overall, I'd be looking to, gauge off options as well, since I do prefer Jordan Addison. But if I had to stick and pick, I have to favor what the market's kind of leaning right now because of, as we see post-draft, the ability to trade that player. And JSN, if he landed on the Seahawks top 20 capital, I think everybody would have him inside their, top 13, top 14 overall dynasty wide receiver rankings.
Yeah, and you also have to take into account too, like the perception pre-draft does hold throughout their entire NFL careers too, right? Because if JSN goes out and has, let's say, 80% of the rookie season that Jordan Addison has, people still might prefer JSN because they liked him pre-draft more than Jordan Addison. And that's something that we have to keep in mind as a dynasty market. We have our takes, we have our convictions, but we want to keep in mind what the market thinks as a whole. So you're going 106 here. I'd imagine you're going to take Jordan Addison. So you can kind of just make that pick there.
For sure. I basically wanted to levy that information before ultimately just taking my guy at 106 overall. That if this was the 105, I would have went with your red as well. The reason why I prefer Addison is pretty simple. He, to me, is the best overall separator in this class. I know Matt Harmon disagreed on reception perception, which is fine. Like, honestly, they are both incredibly talented wide receivers, but you're getting Jordan Addison now, landing with the New York Giants, not much target competition over there, an ascending offense the way Daniel Jones performed last year, Brian Daboll at the helm. They need that true number one, 120, 130 plus target wide receiver, which I absolutely feel like Jordan Addison can be in this offense. I mean, this is the same guy that made Kenny Pickett a first-round quarterback. He's the same guy that can make maybe Daniel Jones a top 12 overall quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, Addison he basically fills the same role that like a Chris Olave would with the 3-level route running ability. Imagine dropping Chris Olave on the Giants offense. That's essentially what would happen in this scenario with Jordan Addison here going 25th to the Giants. I think one of the best landing spots he could potentially go to, given the type of offense that they run there. His favorite receiver growing up, a Maryland native, is Stephon Diggs. I think he could fill the Stephon Diggs role in Brian Daboll's offense in this scenario. So I really like that landing spot. Here for me at 107, there's a couple options that I could go with. I could go with Jahmyr Gibbs, who went 34th overall to the Cardinals. I think that's probably the direction I'm going to go. But also in consideration for me here would be Will Levis, who went 11th overall to the Tennessee Titans, top 11 draft capitals. Obviously something we got to respect. His tail to tape should be live. I posted that yesterday. And then Zach Charbonnet also went 60th overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. And I think as good as Jahmyr Gibbs is, I think Charbonnet is almost right there with him. And having the better landing spot definitely makes that a lot closer of a discussion for me. But I am still going to take Jahmyr Gibbs here. 34th overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals. They have James Conner there, who's obviously a more of like your traditional run in between the tackles type of guy. Jahmyr Gibbs and him could probably work in unison. Jahmyr Gibbs' rookie season. We might see something similar to kind of what we saw from Christian McCaffrey his rookie year, where Jahmyr Gibbs has like 100 target rookie season, not a whole lot of work on the ground because Connor's there, but then come 2024, we have Jahmyr Gibbs maybe working a little bit more on the ground as they fill out that backfield. Kyler Murray comes back, or potentially even Caleb Williams as his quarterback. We have no idea what's going to happen there in Arizona, but I like the landing spot. I like the top 40 draft capital for Gibbs.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. 34th overall, basically just right on the fringe of being a first-round pick in this scenario. Jahmyr Gibbs, just a hyper-athletic, hyper-talented, dynamic running back, and adding that to the mix with Arizona, like you kind of said, you're going to have Kyler back in 2024, potentially even an upgrade from Kyler if Caleb Williams lives up to what we expect him to be. I do expect the Cardinals to struggle this year, so if you need a player right now that's going to be that high-end contributor to your fantasy lineups, kind of have pauses as to what Gibbs is going to represent in year one. But like you kind of said, year two on, where this could be a legitimate, 100 target, top 10 overall running back in fantasy. So I would have went with Gibbs as well. 108 now is where we kind of have a decision point here, right? You have Quentin Johnson, you have Zach Charbonnet, you have Will Levis. Obviously, in this scenario with Will Levis, ends up going 11th overall to the Tennessee Titans. A lot of smoke recently on the Titans wanting one of these quarterbacks. It's tough, but with Quentin Johnson falling out of the first round, and with Will Levis getting that top 12 overall capital going to Tennessee, I think I would prefer Will Levis here. And Get it? We hear all the hype about the top 3 quarterbacks. Where's the love for Will Levis? I mean, this is still a very, very high-end ceiling when it comes to Levis, a little bit on the older side, but the arm talent, the mobility, the toughness in the pocket, everything's kind of represented here. It almost feels like a match made in heaven from a personality standpoint with Will Levis going to Mike Vrabel. You know, Mike Vrabel wants that sturdy, big, stand in the pocket type of guy. And I mean, Will Levis kind of represents that to a T, right?
Yeah, for sure. I called at the end of his tail of the tape, spoiler alert, if you guys haven't watched yesterday's video, I said that I think Will Levis can be an NFL bust. I don't think he's actually that good of a quarterback. I think there's a lot of problems on his profile. As far as like his inaccuracies, his inconsistencies, the fact that we have all these on-field question marks with the guy who's almost 24 years old. How much really left is there for there to be developed? It's not like an Anthony Richardson situation where he's a one-year starter. He's only 21 years old. So for me, Will Levis profiles is like a shittier profile version of Sam Darnold coming out. And I don't really want to attach myself to that in a rookie draft. I still have him valued here as like a top 10, top 9 kind of rookie pick because we're wrong on quarterbacks all the time. It's just my opinion. He could always work out. The tools, the arm talent's definitely there. And if it does work out, it'll be similar to the Justin Herbert situation a couple of years ago. So for me, this is about the range that I think he should go, but I would prefer to not be the one that actually makes the selection. Will Levis, if I can help it. So he's an interesting topic, man. I had a fun time breaking him down yesterday. I can get in here to 109, which to me is a very clearly Zach Charbonnet, who went in the second round, 60th overall to the Cincinnati Bengals. A lot of smoke around Joe Mixon potentially getting cut, potentially getting traded. Even if he's not, we're talking about a running back who has a 3-down skill set working in an offense led by Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. I think this offense could be super fun to watch. Charbonnet is basically a better receiving back version of Joe Mixon already. So if he were to just inherit his role, I think this would be really, really fun and a lot of RB1 seasons in store for Zach Charbonnet. And legitimately, it would be a conversation for me at 107.
Yeah, no, I absolutely see that. It's a clear top 3 in terms of the draft this year. Bijan's that, you know, up top talent at the running back position. After that, you know, some people kind of view it as a tier gap between Gibbs and Charbonnet, but I do think you can argue, given the skill sets, that Charbonnet would be on that level, more prone to quote unquote holding that 3-down type of workload. And like you kind of mentioned with Cincinnati, in terms of hand picking a landing spot, name a better absolute landing spot than him getting second round draft capital and going to a team that can just, you know, cut Joe Mixon, use Charbonnet in that exact role, and arguably get an upgrade year 1.
Yeah, I mean, they score points, and he's a guy who can contribute on all 3 downs. Like, it would be an awesome, awesome landing spot for him. So let's see where you're at with 110. I have a feeling I know where you're going. It's probably not the direction I would go, but I bet you're going QJ.
Yeah, it's going Quentin Johnson. I kind of mentioned him, was considering him with the 108, just felt that the top 11 draft capital of Levis, despite what we think of him as a prospect, it's still quarterback getting high capital. I think you had to pull the trigger on him there. With Quentin Johnson here, he goes 33rd overall, pairs up with CJ Stroud in this scenario. Obviously a dynamic wide receiver talent. You put him there with CJ Stroud, he can be that clear-cut number 1 wide receiver in the long term for a CJ Stroud-led offense. It's kind of a no-brainer to me. You guys know my thoughts on Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, QJ, my comp for him was Brandon Ayuk. You have the same scheme and the same system that developed Brandon Ayuk coming over. So I actually I like the landing spot for QJ. I personally think of the 3 wide receivers that I have in this next tier, QJ, Zay Flowers, and Josh Downs, I actually think he got the best landing spot. And the first, you know, he didn't get the first round draft capital, but he did get, you know, essentially a first round draft capital pick, 33rd overall, basically the same thing. So yeah, I like the value there. I'm glad you picked him, so I didn't have to, similar to the Levis pick there. So I'm actually going to go with my next rated player, my next rated wide receiver, which is Zay Flowers from Boston College, who went 22nd overall to the Baltimore Ravens. Everyone, PU, you know, Baltimore Ravens, everyone's mad about the landing spot. But again, man, like, it's a new system. Todd Monken's coming in. It's not the same Greg Roman-led Baltimore Ravens. We don't know if Lamar's the quarterback. We don't know if the quarterback's available in 2024. Maybe it's Drake May. Maybe it's Caleb Williams if they trade Lamar or something like that. To me, I just want the guy who got 22nd overall draft capital, who I think is the 3rd best receiver in the class. And the rest of the stuff could work out. Odell Beckham Jr. could be washed up. Rashad Bateman might not be good. We could have the number 1 receiver for Lamar Jackson or for a future quarterback here at 22nd overall, available at the 111.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree here. Zay Flowers getting that first round draft capital, smooth mover, yards after catch. Obviously, like you kind of mentioned, we expect more passing volume with Monken coming in. I think this just had to be the pick here. Him or the next guy I'm going to be taking kind of ends that, you know, first, second round type of area. If you don't want to take a tight end, these are like the last receivers remaining, and they're I don't want to say carbon copies, but they represent a lot of the same type of pros in terms of what they add to your offense. So you get the one taken earlier here, 22nd overall. I'm just going to go with the other one. You mentioned his name, Josh Downs, going 46th overall here to the New England Patriots, I believe. Yes, 46th overall New England Patriots. And like you kind of said with Zay Flowers, smaller wide receiver. Maybe he doesn't have, that top 5 overall ceiling given limitations. Maybe he's a slot type of guy, but realistically, you're adding him to New England. You're expecting, him to automatically, if not by year 2, be that clear-cut number 1 target on that offense. And like you kind of said, this is a clear top 5 overall wide receiver in this draft class. So if this happened in the NFL draft, I would commend New England for getting that type of value, because this is a guy, in my opinion, should be flirting with first-round status, and you get him in the middle of the second round.
They're also not very good at drafting wide receivers, and drafting a guy with like a good analytics profile seems like something that they would never do in a million years. So I doubt this pick would actually happen, but I do think he'd be a perfect fit slot receiver. This is a death by 1,000 paper cuts offense. It's a perfect fit for Josh Downs' skill set. So yeah, I really like the fit. Like, nobody's going to like Baltimore getting Zay Flowers and Josh Downs going to the Patriots, but I actually think they're both really good landing spots for what those two players represent. Because if Monken comes in and runs like a, Tampa Bay, Georgia type of system, we could see Zay Flowers work downfield as he did at Boston College, and also get some of those design touches like, Chris Godwin got in the Tampa Bay days. So I really like both of those fits, even though on face value, it doesn't look like they're great landing spots. I'm actually going to take a Dallas Cowboy right here. Michael Mayer is my tight end 1 in the class. He goes off the board 26th overall to Danny's Dallas Cowboys. Basically slot him in for Dalton Schultz's production right away. This is the best prospect profile we've seen a couple years in a tight end class. People are forgetting about him, overlooking him because he's a tight end, because he's like only an 80th percentile athlete, not like a 99th percentile athlete like every other tight end in this class. But to me, Michael Mayer produced every year of his career, got better every single year of his career at Notre Dame, finished it out with like a 30% target share, 92 PFF grade, and tested pretty well, and also was first round draft capital. Like, this is a pretty safe projection for like a TJ Hawkinson level career, if not potentially more, in the offense that he's going to, that knows how to use a tight end, knows how to get them involved. So I like Michael Mayer here at the 2-1 to the Dallas Cowboys. Even in a non-tight end premium, I think he should be a 1-2 turn pick.
Yeah, I think this is a good value from fantasy. Obviously, in real life, this would kind of break my heart taking a tight end in round 1, just like a running back in round 1 would be. But all jokes aside, though, from a fantasy perspective, you're basically taking out Dalton Schultz and his 89 plus targets in the last 4 or 5 years, and you're bringing in one of the best target commanding tight ends we've seen since Kyle Pitts. So fantasy wise, Michael Mayer could flirt with top 8 overall status, maybe a Greg Dulcich type of rookie season, but year 2 and on, I mean, this should be a top 5 tight end in fantasy, period.
Yeah, he actually could be one of the first tight ends to break the rookie tight end mold too. Because I think, like I said, when you're a tight end prospect, you need like the scheme and the offense to be kind of on your side. And I think both would be the case for him there. So where are you going with the 2-2? You going with another tight end? You're going to go with a running back? We got some good draft capital of those guys, or a wide receiver? What's up?
Yeah, this is a tricky spot here. You could argue, another one of the first-round tight ends here. There's one other in this draft with Dalton Kincaid. I think he's within discussion. Could also argue maybe you go with the next running back that you like. I like a guy like Tank Bigsby going to the Rams in the 3rd round. But I do think from a process standpoint, getting Dalton Kincaid here, landing with the Chargers, obviously the same scheme that we've seen with Dalton Schultz, with Kellen Moore these past couple years, landing there with the Chargers this offseason, needs that, steady, reliable, intermediate, 2-level type of threat at tight end, which I think Kincaid could be in the both, short area and the intermediate area of that Chargers offense. You have Mike Williams affecting the downfield. You need a little bit more of a security blanket add to this offense. I think Kincaid could be that. So adding Dalton Kincaid here, like you kind of said, Michael Mayer would be the tight end 1, but I don't think there's a huge difference in terms of what Kincaid could basically represent here going to the Chargers.
Yeah, definitely a fun landing spot there for Kincaid, a guy that's like your prototypical like move tight end. You put him in that offense, and he could definitely do some damage for sure. So, I mean, we got a bunch of tight ends that went in the 2nd round. I believe we've exhausted all of the 1st-round picks. I don't think there's any left on the board now that you've taken Kincaid. I am actually going to go down to round 3, though, and I'm going to take a running back prospect that I love in Tank Bigsby, who went in the 3rd round, went off the board. Where overall did he go? 77th overall to the Los Angeles Rams. They have Cam Akers there. He's a free agent after this year. They have, Kyron Williams, who they drafted last year. Tank Bigsby, to me, it has a 3-down skill set, needs a little bit of time to develop, needs to refine his instincts a little bit more. But I think in a McVay offense where it's generally a one read kind of system for a running back, I think Bigsby would actually be a great fit. He's very elusive. He's good on third down. He's very physical. He's more, durable and more reliable than Cam Akers has been to this point in his career. So I really like Bigsby there to the Rams in the third round. A couple of different directions I could have gone, but I'll go with a prospect that I really like. And I have rated here as of right now, just based on talent, he is actually currently my 2-3.
Yeah, which is funny because I really, really thought about taking him at the 202s between him and Kincaid, like I kind of said. Just went with the draft capital there. I would have went with Bigsby at the 203 there. So I do think that was a very good value. We obviously, you guys know that we're high on Cam Akers. We've been high on Cam Akers, but if the Rams take a running back on day 2, it kind of doesn't signal to me that they expect Cam Akers, a guy that they were planning on trading at the deadline, to be that long-term figure in their backfield, which I think Tank Bigsby can be. And oddly enough, I think you've said this on multiple occasions, that Tank Bigsby, the prospect, kind of reminds you a bit of Cam Akers, the prospect, in the sense that the situation was awful and every single thing that they produced for the offense was created on their own right.
Yeah, both guys had no offensive line help pretty much in college. So yeah, definitely makes a lot of sense. Where are you going here at the 2-4?
Yeah, I'm in between a couple of guys. I think I'm going to go with Roschon Johnson, actually going to your Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. It's funny, you take the Dallas Cowboy, I take the Tampa Bay Buccaneer, but we've kind of cited our concerns about Rachaad White developing into that full-time 3-down back. Now, do I think if Roschon's added, he's instantly going to leave, Rachaad White vulnerable to no work? Absolutely not. I think Rachaad White's still going to occupy that third down type of work. But when you're talking about a banger between the tackles, contributing on the goal line, kind of quote unquote filling that tone setter role that Leonard Fournette leaves behind, Roschon Johnson would fit that to a T. So getting him here at the 204, yeah, this upcoming year, Tampa doesn't really expect to win a ton of games, but let's just say you guys get one of those stud quarterbacks next year, and you're looking like a top 10 offense once again. If you got the lead running back one inside the goal line for a team that could eventually be a top 10 offense, adding that nice quarterback within the year, sign me up. Get me Roschon Johnson here at the 2-4.
I was this close to comping Roschon Johnson to Leonard Fournette, like this close. Like he's actually a lot like Leonard Fournette, I think. So definitely a very solid pick. I wouldn't hate that pick at all as a Bucs fan. Getting a guy in the third round to go along with Rachaad White. Neither guy is going to, forecast what you're going to do on a given play, because they can both play on third down. They can both run the ball in between the tackles. So I really like that pick by the Buccaneers there with Roschon Johnson. Another spot here where I could go a number of different directions. We have Jalen Hyatt, who went 40th overall to the New Orleans Saints. Some of these tight ends are still interesting too. Darnell Washington goes to the Lions. Tucker Kraft goes to the Jaguars. I am probably going to go once again back to the running back position. I am not a massive Devon A-Chain fan, but I am going to take him here at 67th overall. That's pretty solid draft capital. You get a top 75 pick, go into a backfield where you have Javonte Williams coming off of a torn ACL. Devon A-Chain, I think, would be a perfect complement also to Javonte Williams. If that offense turns it around, you now have Sean Payton as the guy architecting what happens to Devon A-Chain, which I think would be a very, very optimal situation for A-Chain's potential. I'm not overly high on him as a prospect because I do think he's a little one-dimensional. Guy that you can use on third down, guy that's going to give you a lot of speed plays, but I don't see a lot of lateral ability to make people miss and stuff. He generally just relies on speed. But if you have Sean Payton operating the joystick that is Devon A-Chain, I do think that he would be a really fun fantasy player here.
Yeah, he'd be a lot of fun here. Obviously, you got that quote-unquote bruiser between the tackles guy once Javonte Williams gets back. And you got that in-space type of addition, which we've seen, like you kind of said, Sean Payton's kind of basically made famous for. You've seen Reggie Bush in the past. You've seen, Pierre Thomas in the past. Not even mentioning, of course, what Kamara's been able to do for that team. So adding that type of archetype to this backfield just seems like in Sean Payton's DNA. So I like that pick there. I'm back on the clock here. I think I'm going to go with another day 2 running back here because, as we know, that's the lifeblood of the second round in this year's class, it seems. It's between Kendre Miller and Tyjae Spears. I'm a little bit concerned about the injury statuses of both, but if they're going on round 3 here, I'm assuming that a lot of that is going to be cleared up from the NFL perspective. So with that being said, I think I'm actually going to lean Tyjae Spears here, landing with the Houston Texans. Obviously, going to be a committee there with him and Dameon Pierce, but you're getting that potential space back, receiving back for this team. Obviously, Devin Singletary signed there, but it was only a 1-year deal, so I doubt either he's not going to take a ton of work this year or post this year, he's not going to be on the team. So getting Tyjae Spears here, day 2 capital, going to be a high-end committee running back for a team that adding CJ Stroud, adding weapons to the outside could potentially be, you know, one of the better offenses in the league come next year. So I'm all for getting him in the mid-second round area.
Yeah, I think he'd be a perfect complement to Pierce. We don't really need to move on too much. We'll try and speed through a little bit more picks here. I actually really like another day 2 running back, like you said, Kendre Miller. If he's healthy, he'll get day 3 or day 2 draft capital. He'll go in the 3rd round probably sometime. He goes to the Giants, which means first year in the system, probably Saquon Barkley's handcuff. Probably not ideal for his like fantasy production right away. But if you're a rebuilder, grab him in the mid-second round. He could absolutely accumulate a ton of value if Saquon Barkley moves on in free agency, which kind of this pick would indicate to me that they're not likely to pay Saquon Barkley after his franchise tag is up. And we also have word too that Saquon might not even sign his franchise tag, could hold out or something like that. So to me, I actually really like this pick for the Giants' sake. You get yourself a running back that you can kind of redshirt as like a backup for his first year while Saquon, you know, you run him into the ground and then you know, maybe turn the keys over to Kendre plus like a 2024 depth piece at some point. So I like Kendre here as like an accumulation piece. Probably not a guy that you'd want year 1 outside of handcuff value, but a guy that I think would be good long-term.
For sure. I like Kendre Miller there a lot as well. Mentioned him as consideration with Spears. 208 here. I'm actually going to go back to the wide receiver well because there's a guy that I like here with a nice landing spot, getting a quarterback in town there that I don't think I can pass on. And that's going to be Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, landing in the 3rd round here, going to the Indianapolis Colts. Very, very productive player, very, very good analytical profile. I do think if he gets day 2 capital, he's deserving of that mid to end 2nd round area in your rookie drafts.
Yeah, no, he's a good prospect. This group of receivers for me, when I was watching and grading, you know, Marvin Mims and Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman and Jonathan Mingo and, you know, Jaden Reed, these guys all kind of blended together to me. So if you want to take them based on capital, based on landing spot in any which way, I'm probably on board with that. And that actually is going to lead me into my pick of Cedric Tillman here, who went in the 2nd round of the Buffalo Bills. I think Cedric Tillman is kind of like a Corey Davis caliber player. I don't think he's going to be an elite prospect or an elite, you know, contributor at the next level. But I will say there is shades of like a Cortland Sutton, Michael Thomas type of skill set for him, where he is very physical. He's able to create separation at the top of his routes, similar to what we saw from like a guy like Drake London last year, only, you know, to a lesser extent. So if he's going to a team that has a proven track record of developing offensive talent like the Buffalo Bills, I think there's a chance that he could become, you know, a long-term number 2, maybe even number 1, given, you know, the size profile that he has. So I like Tillman there at 2.9, going to the Buffalo Bills at 59th overall.
Yeah, no, I definitely like that pick as well. Obviously, a very good landing spot. Need that, you know, tertiary option next to Stephon Diggs, especially if Gabe Davis doesn't take that next leap up. So like that pick there at the 210. I'm stuck between a few options. It's tough. I mean, you could go with a tight end here, but I do think this is where the slide of Jalen Hyatt does end. Top 40 overall draft capital, going to the New Orleans Saints. Not the biggest fan of his skill set. I feel like you're about to get into in a second, he's kind of a one-trick pony. Free releases on the outside, working in that 3rd level of the defense. Not really a target earning type of asset. Like, think of your Marcus Valdes-Scantling in terms of what his impact could be. But in the right situation, working next to Chris Olave as his number 2, Derek Carr added in town for a team that could be a top 5 team in the NFC this upcoming year. I do think this would be a nice landing spot, getting that top 40 capital with New Orleans and Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, I'm not high on him. I don't want to be the one that selects him in a rookie draft because I do think he is a one-trick pony, like you said. But I mean, good landing spot, 40th overall draft capital. I'm not, you know, down on Hyatt because I don't think he's going to go high in the draft. I know he's going to go high in the draft because he's got speed, right? And speed kills at the next level. But I would prefer someone else to be the one that takes him. And you did that. And speaking of speed kills, the final day 2 running back here, I believe I'm going to go with Israel Abanikanda, who went at 94th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe you could have argued he could have gone higher than this, just given the landing spot and the fact that he was a day 2 running back to one of the best offenses in the league. I'm lower on Izzy's just ability. When I watched him on tape, I did not see a superstar athlete like he tested as at his pro day. I've also seen, you know, mixed results of what his actual numbers were. I've seen 4.31 in some places, 4.43 in some places. So for me, Abanikanda, not a guy that's going to create a ton on his own, but thankfully in the Philadelphia Eagles offense, he probably doesn't have to. He's going to have a great offensive line and a great running quarterback to help him open up rushing lanes and potentially punch in some touchdowns. So again, kind of falls ass backwards into an elite landing spot here. If he went to a worse team, I probably wouldn't have drafted him.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with everything you kind of said there. Obviously, the testing out of the wazoo. And we've kind of mentioned the Eagles as being probably the premier rushing spot of this entire class. I mean, you got Rashad Penny there, you got Kenneth Gainwell there, but no real long-term commitments to this backfield. So if any of these, prospects go within the first 3 rounds to Philadelphia, they're going to be selected fairly high, which of course Izzy is in this scenario. My next pick, I'm between a couple guys, but I'm going to end the fall of Darnell Washington. Kind of mentioned him earlier on. 2nd round draft capital going to the Detroit Lions. Do I think he's going to be, this hyper involved 95, 100 plus target tight end? No. But can he be, a 75 to 90 target tight end and contribute, some years of 8 to 10 touchdowns? Absolutely. We expect this Detroit Lions offense to be one of the better units in the NFL, one of the most shocking units in 2022. Adding this piece, especially a huge red zone piece, losing Jamal Williams, getting a 6'7" freak of nature at tight end added to this core. I think this is one of the better landing spots you can get for Darnell Washington.
Yeah, and I'm probably going to go right to the tight end as well, because I do think that there's a big pocket of tight ends that need to go in like the late 2nd, early 3rd round range. I think Tucker Kraft is between him and Sam Laporta. I like both guys, but Kraft goes in the 2nd round versus Laporta in the 3rd round. Goes to the Jaguars. They have Evan Ingram there on a 1-year franchise tag, but after that, I think Kraft could slide in very nice. This is it's a low hanging comparison, but he does have some Dallas Goedert in him, given the school that he went to and the skill set he has. He was a target earner. He was a guy that tested very, very well, as did most of these tight ends in this class. And after that 1 year where Evan Ingram is, in town, he could be attached to the right arm of Trevor Lawrence for the next while. So I really like Kraft there, top 60 draft capital to the Jags.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fine pick as well. And you just mentioned his name. I'm going to take Sam Laporta, landing here 3rd round to the Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo coming in town, going to add that, intermediate quote unquote passing factor to this team. Laporta, he's shown that he can contribute from a yak perspective. He's shown that he can handle a high amount of targets. I think this would be a seamless fit, adding him next to Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't know what they're going to do at quarterback long-term if Garoppolo is going to be the guy there, but he's used his tight ends plenty in the past. And we know this system uses tight ends very well with McDaniels there. So yeah, I think Laporta would be a great fit. He could, at least be what, Hunter Henry was given the McDaniels system the past couple of years. So the next guy that I'm going to go off, I honestly probably may have taken this guy a little earlier if I would have noticed, but Jaden Reed going to the Carolina Panthers. He's actually my 6th rated wide receiver in the class, ahead of Jalen Hyatt, ahead of Cedric Tillman and Marvin Mims, who all went ahead of him in this mock draft. He goes to an offense with a lot of target competition up for grabs, right? There's no real target earners there in Carolina to work with my quarterback 1 in the class, Bryce Young, in the long term. I think Jaden Reed is kind of like a Jahan Dotson light. If you pictured, dropping Jahan Dotson in an offense with Bryce Young there, I think that's kind of what Jaden Reed could provide. They have Thielen, they have Marshall, some more outside guys there. Jaden Reed working in the slot most of the time would probably command quite a bit of targets.
Yeah, no, I like that pick. Set to potentially contribute from day one. You kind of mentioned it. You got the quarterback in town, more old veteran type of outside wide receivers with Thielen, and I believe they added somebody else. Was it Chark?
DJ Chark and Terrace Marshall, obviously.
Correct, right? So more outside build type of wide receivers. You get Jaden Reed in, could probably be the day 1 slot there?
Yeah, I mean, it would be up for him and Terrace Marshall probably to work out of the slot, and Marshall's been pretty disappointing to this point in his career. So yeah, most of the 2nd round, I think, except for 1 guy maybe, exhausted. 2 guys, sorry, out of the 2nd round. Most of the 3rd round exhausted. Where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, I got to take one of the 2nd round guys here. I don't like this guy because he's old, because he's coming off the injury, because even though this year he had the gaudy stats, didn't really impress from a full creation type of perspective. I got to go with Hendon Hooker, though, and he gets 37th overall draft capital, lands with the Seattle Seahawks here. Already mentioned with JSN, I expect this to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. Yeah. Do I expect Geno Smith to beat him out? Absolutely. Do I think Geno Smith has a more plausible case to be the long-term quarterback there than Hooker? Absolutely. But when it comes to an opportunity cost perspective of potentially getting a starting caliber quarterback in fantasy in the mid-3rd round of their rookie drafts, I think this is where you got to pull the trigger. If he gets, 6 starts by 2024, this pick will already paid off. And then, of course, if he outright beats Geno and you're getting, a potential quarterback 2 option in fantasy for a mid-3rd round opportunity cost, I'm taking that every time.
Yeah, we're lower on Hendon Hooker. I mean, I'm sure somebody's going to go to the comments and be mad that we have Hendon Hooker here going in the 3rd round. In a real rookie draft with these landing spots, I'd imagine me and Danny aren't playing chicken the entire time, and Hendon Hooker's probably a mid-2nd round pick. Yeah. But I'm not taking him that high. I think he's Teddy Bridgewater, Jacoby Brissett, game manager caliber quarterback. They already have one in Geno Smith. So to me, this pick doesn't make any sense from the Seahawks perspective. If you're going to pick a quarterback, it should be a ceiling play like Anthony Richardson at like 5 overall or something like that. So I don't love the pick for the Seahawks, but like you said, he could get in there and start some games, which would obviously be valuable here at the 3-4. So I'm also going to take a guy who I'm going to end the slide of from the second round here. I'm going to take Tyler Scott, who went 63rd overall to Cincinnati or to the Kansas City Chiefs. Speed receiver going to the Chiefs. I mean, people might take him higher than this. I think, again, like Hyatt, he's more of like a one-trick pony type of asset and type of athlete. So I don't love the player, but I do love the landing spot, and I think he'd have some trade liquidity as a result of that. So I'll take Tyler Scott here in the mid-third.
Yeah, I think that's a fine pick there. I just realized when you said, there was 2 players sliding from the second round, I noticed the 2 that weren't Tyler Scott. Didn't even notice Tyler Scott there. So I think that's a good pick. The guy that I thought you were talking about when you said sliding from the second round is Luke Musgrave here, going in the mid-second to the Green Bay Packers. Going to make him the pick here. You can argue, him, Laporta, Kraft, Washington kind of make up that next tier at tight end after Kincaid and Mayer go in round 1. But with Musgrave here, he lands, of course, with a team that needs help in the passing game. Didn't take a wide receiver in the first round. And if you're looking at that Green Bay pass-catching depth chart, it is absolutely horrendous right now. You got Romeo Doubs, you got Christian Watson. Christian Watson, you expect to be that number 1, number 2 there for from a long-term standpoint, but it feels like everybody's kind of, slotted up a role than they're not used to. Like Romeo Doubs, like I said, is already the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. Doesn't really feel like a long-term number 2. Samori Toure, if you get anything from him, then so be it. Josiah DeGuara, currently their starting tight end right now. That is a problem. If you're going to surround a young quarterback like Jordan Love with enough on offense to compete, you need to add somebody from this draft. Luke Musgrave, I'm not the hugest fan of. I don't think he's, better than Laporta. I don't think he's better than Darnell Washington in this scenario, but he does go high, does have a receiving profile, and does land on a team that needs that caliber at tight end to be able to suffice on offense. So 306 here, starting caliber tight end, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, this next pick's easy for me. Give me Chase Brown. I don't think he's going to go in the 5th round. I think he should go off the board way before the 5th round. He's a 3rd round, late 2nd round, potentially even talent, in my opinion, in the class. He is my current RB4, but I have to respect 5th round draft capital. He goes to Chicago. He's got an opportunity to work with, Khalil Herbert there, probably be like a 50-50 type of split their rookie season. But Chase Brown, they're more in the long term. Khalil Herbert's a little bit older when he was coming out, and he's only got a year or 2 left on his deal as well. So I like Chase Brown there to the Bears with 5th round draft capital. Not a great opportunity situation, but I think he's a good enough player to work his way into the rotation.
Yeah, I think that's a fine pick there. You're going to see some of these, lotto ticket type of running backs go off the board here. I'm at a spot now where I'm in between a few players. You could look at a guy like Dwayne McBride going to the Saints, but realistically, that's what they signed Jamal Williams to kind of do, occupy that role. So not exactly sure of the fit there. Could go with Eric Gray with him getting that 4th round capital to the Los Angeles Chargers. Obviously a very prime spot. Eckler potentially leaving, but yeah, I'm going to lean Jonathan Mingo here, wide receiver from Ole Miss, landing at the Tennessee Titans with the 72nd overall pick. Day 2 wide receiver, not the biggest fan of him from a production standpoint, but in terms of fit, in terms of what they're looking for, that big-bodied alpha style type of wide receiver in Tennessee to pair next to Treylon Burks. It gives you the freedom to be able to move Treylon Burks inside, use him from a matchup perspective with that yards after catch ability, and allows Mingo to be that outside wide receiver. So I don't mind that. I think he could be, like I kind of said, right away, the number 2 overall weapon in that offense. And do I think it's going to be a great offense? No, but if he has the opportunity to earn targets on that team, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think I wrote down that Mingo is just an absolute lock to be a Tennessee Titan when I was watching his film.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, not only does he wear number 1, went to Ole Miss, which is obviously AJ Brown, central. I think Jonathan Mingo is the best blocking receiver I've ever seen. And you're talking about an offense that runs the ball like nobody's business. So Jonathan Mingo going there to the Titans makes a ton of sense. There's a couple other, round 3 guys that I really like still, but I am going to bypass that for 1 lotto ticket running back. I'm going to take Sean Tucker here at 3-9. He goes round 6, unfortunately, falls all the way to the 6th round, but he does go to the Kansas City Chiefs in a backfield where it's pretty much just Isaiah Pacheco. They don't invest a lot in the position here with just a 6th round running back, but I think Tucker is, a borderline day 2 caliber running back talent. So there's a possibility that, he works his way into that backfield. And if he ever gets any opportunity and you have him, as your 3-9, then there's a possibility you could get him in for, 4 or 5, like RB2 or better type of weeks.
Yep. No, I agree with that. I actually completely forgot that he landed in the 6th round to the Chiefs there. That probably would have been my pick at the 308. You mentioned the size, the speed, the fit there with Kansas City. Like, we just saw this past year that exact type of archetype and end up completely accumulating in value with Isaiah Pacheco being added. Similar situation to what Sean Tucker would be added this year. Any running back that gets the opportunity and the trust of the coaching staff in Kansas City is going to have a pretty significant role in fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. So which direction are you going? We got a couple more running backs that are interested in a couple more wide receivers. We'll probably, I would say, just cut this video at 3 rounds and then show you the 4th round rather than like go pick by pick for the 4th round. And then we'll get out of here after that. So who you got at 310?
Yeah, at the 310, tough spot. I think I'm going to take Zach Evans here, landing in the 4th round to the Carolina Panthers, ending his slide right now. They obviously signed Miles Sanders to that four-year, $26 million contract this offseason, but after that, it doesn't really seem like they have much trust long-term with Chuba Hubbard. You lost Deontay Foreman in free agency. You need that banger between the tackles who can maybe have an Alexander Madison type of career. I think Zach Evans would represent that. And if you told me right now that you can get, Alexander Madison for the next 3-4 years at a 310 opportunity cost in a rookie draft, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense there as well. I'm going to end another slide here. Tank Dell is really small. Obviously, he's a very small receiver, but he goes 87th overall to the Vikings here. I think it's probably, at least assumed that they're going to use him in some kind of like, utility type of role. He could be like, if you play in Dynasty best ball leagues, a good investment to make. So I'll go with Tank Dell there at the 311.
Yeah, I don't mind that pick as well. You mentioned day 2 capital here. Lands in an opportunity where he could potentially earn a role on that team. All for it there as well. I did mention Eric Gray. I'm kind of intrigued with him at this spot. So it'd be between a guy like that, maybe a guy like Xavier Hutchinson going to the Bears here, I think would be a fine pick. But I'm going to lean with the running back. We want the lottery ticket, potential situation here with the Chargers. Maybe Eckler is out. I don't mind taking a shot on a guy like Eric Gray at this point.
Yeah. Makes some sense. Eric Gray, good pass catching skill set. Obviously, Eckler would probably not need to be in town for him to be useful. I don't think they would just roll into the, ongoing seasons with like Isaiah Spiller, Eric Gray combo, but it's possible that if he plays well, he can play himself into like a solid role. So not a bad spot. So we're going to skip ahead through the 4th round and then kind of recap the draft after we're done. So we'll be back in 1 second. All right, so we got the draft finished up here. We got, Rashee Rice, a couple day 2 tight ends with Schoonmaker and with Strange. And then most of these guys, day 3, Deuce Vaughn, Chris Rodriguez, Dwayne McBride, Evan Hall, these running backs, probably, not great opportunity situations. Kayshon Boutte's fall from grace from like the consensus 105 preseason, now down to 49 here, 10 days away from the NFL draft is a humbling experience, I'm sure, for a lot of people that were Boutte stands. But yeah, this is the 4-round rookie mock draft. Again, if you want to check out the entire thing, you need an athletic subscription. But again, we didn't want to spoil totally everything for you guys, so go check that out from Dane Brugler. Link will be down below in the description. If you guys enjoyed this video at any point, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Danny, what is your favorite pick from this mock draft? I'll let you say what your favorite value was that you got.
Favorite value that we got here. Honestly, I wouldn't say this is the best value, but I really, really like your selection of Bigsby at the 203, just from the upside perspective, right? Because if they're taking a day 2 running back with Bigsby, with that skill set that he kind of represents, again, we mentioned the overlap between him and Cam Akers. I do think there's a realistic plausibility where if they're making that pick, Cam Akers is either out by mid-season or he's out after the season. And at that point, you're getting Tank Bigsby as that number 1 overall running back on a team that should be able to bounce back as long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy.
Yeah, I like pretty much every one of those first 3rd round picks there. Kraft, Laporta, Reed, Hooker. I like all those picks there at that value. You get, some day 2 caliber tight ends that get good draft capital. Jaden Reed in an opportunity, rich situation, and Hendon Hooker, top 50 draft capital for a quarterback, is definitely nice there at the 3-4. So that is the end of the video. Like I said, check out everything down below. Going across the bottom of your screen has been flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE for all of our dynasty rankings, rookie rankings, articles, bonus content, all that good stuff. So with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.